Well, hello and welcome to the second series in the About Small Business podcast. We're really excited to be shooting from a new studio in my home office and talking to some amazing small businesses in the local area. In this episode of the podcast, I'm going to be talking to Anthony Cunningham from CW Financial Management. If you are enjoying the content that we're making, please do like and subscribe to the channel and hit the notification bell, and that will let you know whenever we've got a new podcast coming up or dropping. Anthony, thank you so much for coming on the podcast.
Thank you for having us.
And can just tell me a little bit about the services that you're offering first of all.
Yeah, so a financial planner, I guess, is the role I do. So help people with multiple sort of areas of finance. So it could be helping them with the cash savings, so doing regular savings, investments, pensions, protecting what's important to them, planning through life and looking at later life planning, estate planning, inheritance tax, a broad range of services that I cover basically. So yeah, it all depends on the client's circumstances in which area I can sort of help, I guess.
So you're going around to either people's houses, offices, workplaces, whatever. Are you talking to them and just generally helping them get the finances in order?
Yeah, basically. So I'll sort of, with every client, we'll do what I call a bit of a fact find. So that just gives me as much information about the person as possible. That's not just about the finances, it's about their sort of life goals, their ambitions, what they want to achieve when they want to retire. So it just gives me the full picture to then be able to help put a plan in place to help them achieve that and hopefully go that step further and hopefully allow them to do things that they maybe thought they couldn't.
Yeah.
And yeah, that covers a broad range of areas by doing so.
Right. So, I mean, in terms of how you started in that, what made you decide on this kind of career path, I suppose?
Yeah, so I worked for Santander previously. So I was a manager there, but when I initially
banking
started,
background,
yeah. So I've come from a financial background, I guess. For a number of years, I was in Santander. Started as a personal banker, they called it, which was helping people with similar banking, open current accounts, savings, credit cards, stuff like that. So, but not advised. And that was a part of the job that I really loved and enjoyed. I then sort of stepped into management and sort of lost that a little bit. It was then more about coaching somebody else to do that.
That seems the way with a lot of professions, actually. Yeah. It's like, so you progress and you lose a kind of part of the job that you love.
Yeah.
And I think I've also noticed that from certainly a lot of other business podcasts. As you grow your business, you kind of losing.
Yeah. Take yourself away.
Yeah, you're taking. I mean, that's certainly something that's affected me. So when I was deciding whether I was going to try and grow or not, it's like, well, I'm going to lose what I actually love doing. Yeah. So as starting on your own, that's presumably giving you that back, is it?
Yeah, so that was the whole part and idea of sort of stepping back into this. So yeah. I think I was in management for 3 or 4 years, but as I say, the part I loved was helping people.
Yeah.
And I just, like I say, I'd lost that bit, so I took the decision, probably about 3 or 4 years ago now, to start putting myself through the exams. All with the view in mind.
Just so we've got a better understanding. The reason I'm suggesting this is that I do recall, believe it or not, it was a career I actually considered for myself a long time ago. Yeah. Back in the 1990s, when I was sort of quite early in my career, and I remember speaking to my first financial advisor, and he was a lovely man, and just a brilliant help. It was at a time where like a lot of the banks and building society, the building society were becoming banks and free shares were being doled out.
Yeah.
I don't know if that was before your time. Obviously, you're a bit younger than me. So,
Yeah.
But he was just really good. Just made a bit of money for us, but he just seemed dead happy in doing what he was doing and helping us out.
Yeah.
And I do remember there were exams talked about. I'd got a colleague that because I used to work in newspaper advertising. I'd got a colleague and he was talking about going through exams. Just for a bit of context, can you just tell us a little bit about those exams?
Yeah, so the exams to become a financial advisor, to get level 4, there's sort of 6. So that gives you a diploma in a wide range of areas. So to do with the regulation side, product side,
Yeah.
the technical side, and applying your knowledge. And then there's five sort of, the first five are all to do with that, and then the sixth one, the final one, is about applying that into a written exam. All about 2 hours, 3 hours long each one.
Wow.
A lot of studying required. Big textbook, about 700 pages per textbook. So a lot of information to take in. For me, it's reading a book and taking information from a page. That's not how I learn, really. So that was a tough aspect for me, I guess. But yeah, got through them.
Well done.
A couple of years. Yeah, it became harder. We had a young son, and going to work sort of 8 till 5, 8 till 6 every day, and then seeing him, put him to bed, and then having to study from sort of 7 o'clock till 9 o'clock every night. As you get older, you don't take information in as easy. So at points it was tough, but yeah, proud that I've achieved that and done that.
As well you should be.
Yeah, and then the next exams is to try and get chartered. So that's to get level 6, and a lot more work required for those, but
right.
An aspiration.
Is just out of curiosity, is there any other pathway to what you do, or is it pure? Because I'm just thinking, I mean, degree courses, apprenticeships, that kind of thing. My impression, rightly or wrongly, was that kind of as if you work in the job that you were doing, I would have perhaps assumed that you might have been just becoming qualified by dint of your experience. Clearly that's not the case.
Yeah, no, so not that I'm aware of. There's a couple of different companies you can go through, but it's still all
fundamentally the same
it's
exam.
Still all exam related. I guess you can gain experience by maybe sort of the role, I guess, before financial planner advisors, a power planner, writing reports and stuff, so you could potentially do that. But I still think even there you need some level of the context from the books. As well. So yeah, I think exams is as far as I'm aware, I believe.
So there's no degree course that would do the same thing.
Not that I'm aware of. I think
it's not something I've heard of, but just interesting that, like I say, because it's quite intensely academic, and would perhaps, just based on what you're saying, would maybe suit the academic route. But I mean, I believe sort of marketing have a similar thing. They've got their own Chartered Institute of Marketing courses.
Yeah.
That I don't think they do that at universities. Like you might be able to do marketing or things like that, but it's a very different course.
And this is maybe something that we may touch on at some point, but the education piece is a part that is a part of my plan going forward, because we don't teach this in schools and stuff, and so maybe this is part of the reason why there maybe isn't a degree that I know of, or a route in from the academic way, I guess.
Having worked with a lot of teachers, I'm really not sure that some of them are the best people to be giving advice.
Yeah, and that's the thing. It's such a specialised area.
Yes.
I don't know how you would bring it into education really in a format that fits the FCA criteria and all that.
It's a tough one, I think, with anything in education. It's like any issue that the country's got. It's like, let's teach it in schools. It's like, well, teachers have got this amount of things to be doing, and where's the expertise? Because I mean, you just rattled off however long it's taken you to study to get where you are.
Yeah.
You've then just told me that you've got further study to go to the next level of that to get a level 6 qualification.
Yeah.
With the best will in the world, I think it's quite insulting to you to assume that teachers can do that in a quick CPD course that might last a couple of hours.
Yeah. Like you say, it's probably not feasible in that respect.
No,
but at some point, I think
there certainly is that requirement,
though. To come into education some way. It might not be the level and degree that it is with financial planners and advisors, but it's not taught really at all.
No,
to manage money, and
not
I
at
think
all.
That's the point. I suppose I'm trying to get is education is important for money in that sense. Being off the specialised areas, you maybe do leave that to a qualified planner or advisor. And
I think it's a fantastic point, and certainly, as I say, from my experience with education, that it's always been talked about.
Yeah.
But as with a lot of these ideas, it's where's the expertise?
Yeah.
It's a really specialised and skilled job.
Yeah.
As I say, I've worked with a number of financial managers, planners, for my own pensions and things like that.
Yeah.
And there's a lot going on. There's a lot of work that you kind of
as well.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah. New regulations and things.
Yeah.
Just with you mentioning school, I mean, and obviously what you've done is quite academic. I mean, what was your position at school? Did you enjoy school?
I don't think I did really. But then when I left, I wish I'd been able to go back. I guess I think I done all right at school. Nothing, I wasn't an A-star student by any stretch of the imagination. I passed majority, but I didn't see school as an enjoyment. I wasn't probably going there, if I'm being honest, going there to learn. It was just something I had to do, I guess.
Yeah.
You're sort of forced. But if I could have my time again, knowing what I know, hindsight, I would definitely go back. And
I think a lot of us do different things in hindsight.
I think so. Yeah, I think a lot of people don't realise the value and importance of it. But that's I suppose another story. So yeah, at school and academically, I wouldn't say I enjoyed exams, but I guess with finance and money, I remember going to sixth form on the first day for an induction, and you were asked what you wanted to do. And the first thing I said was, I want to work in a bank. Don't really know why. I was always good at maths, I guess, so I sort of associated maths maybe with the finance side, and I said I want to work in a bank.
So fundamentally maths then?
Yeah.
Not money?
But no, not really.
That's really interesting.
I think the subject that just I was naturally, I guess, good at and clicked and understood was maths, and somehow I put maths and money together. I don't know how, but yeah, and as I say, bank was the first job I said I wanted to do, and eventually got into a bank, and then led us to here, I guess. Yeah, but it's the helping people aspect with that's the passion, I guess.
Yeah, that's it's interesting, as I say, because I mean, anyone that gets into banking, financial planning, that kind of thing, I mean, for me, I did flirt with the idea at one point and didn't obviously progress anything. Didn't find any sort of way without getting a job first, which would have meant taking a pay cut.
Yeah.
And obviously at the time decided the investment wasn't right for me. But certainly my motivations were about finance. I was just sort of quite interested in the money side of it.
Yeah.
And so I'm quite fascinated that yours is purely maths.
Yeah.
So I mean, so presumably you did okay with your GCSE. Did you go on do A levels or?
I did go to sixth form,
Right.
But again, similar. I think 16, 17-year-old. I again didn't apply myself. I guess so. I'd actually took law, accountancy, classical civilization. I think I took. They were the three exams I took, and I think I failed accountancy. Funny enough.
Right.
I'm not going into why. I think. The education part was possibly to do that, but yeah, so I failed that, so that meant I had to redo the first year, and I was just like, I'm not staying here another 2 years, I guess.
Yeah.
So then sort of dropped out of sixth form, got a job working at Woolworths, if you'll remember.
I used to work at Woolworths myself.
Right,
Fond memories.
Yeah, it was probably the best job I had. Your first job. I think everybody loves their first job, and started there, and that was closed down sadly. So then had to find something else. Went into betting shops. Worked with Coral. So maybe that's a little bit of in the money.
I was going to say presumably you're not advising.
Yeah, no, I don't advise on gambling. No, not at all. So and then sort of stumbled in, seeing an opportunity to apply for a banking job, and was fortunate enough to get it. And
brilliant. I just want to, just purely out of curiosity, because you mentioned it with the betting. I've dabbled in shares, and I'm not going to tell you how much money I've lost in shares because it makes me want to cry. But I mean, how do you feel about any kind of investment and the difference between gambling? Because, I mean, certainly when you look at people that really do follow form on horses, for example, you can get some people that are quite successful with it and make money from it. Mm-hmm. How would you personally kind of draw a line, say, look, no, that's definitely not the way to go? I mean, I think, we've got the image of a betting shop, sort of someone that's maybe getting a bit drunk, popping down, spending his wages on the horses without a clue about what he's doing, which I'm sure you have. I mean, you're going to be picking up the pieces of an awful lot of different situations. But how would you actually differentiate between, dare I say, gambling and what I suspect you might call a calculated risk?
I think gambling, so For me personally, I have probably a higher risk tolerance and appetite, I guess, when it comes to investments, but I understand some people don't. Maybe that comes from the gambling background, understanding the gambling
Yeah.
background, but oh, that's just you just take a game of football, for example, if you bet on one team to beat the other, there's so many variables within that 90 minutes of the match that can go against you that you're not really in control of,
Yeah.
red card, whatever it might be. So that is a gamble, I think. You probably got what, in some case, if you think Man City, more than a 50-50 split, I guess,
Yeah.
in your favour, but that moment in the match can just change that in an instant. Whereas I guess for an investment and assets, thinking if we were going to put money into a particular portfolio, it's spread across so many different
Yeah.
companies, or potentially, you might have different asset classes, so you might have a little bit of cash in there, bonds, property and equities, which is shares in companies. You've got a much broader spread, so the risk, I think, is way less.
Yeah.
And even though there's a lot of factors going on there, so if we take equities, for example, which is shares in companies, so yes, you might have a company that shares plummet in a day, but that will somewhere be balanced along with a company that in an opposite area segment. So we use the idea of ice cream shops in the summer and umbrellas in the winter.
Yeah.
So you might have that balance that one might plummet, the other will, to average it out.
Yeah.
If that makes sense.
It does make sense, actually, because it's a couple of business people I know, they've invested in buildings whereby they've got a shop, they've got another shop, and then like an Airbnb upstairs or a flat upstairs, just for that very reason. Yeah. So that's, I suppose, just good sense, I suppose.
Yeah, diversification, really. Yeah. Just spreading your assets, having a good spread of them to negate that risk. Yeah. Or even though potentially equities might be seen as high risk, actually, because of how many companies are involved in it, the different types of companies, the different areas of the world, different economies, that risk is then brought back down to not being a gamble, I guess.
Yeah. So, I mean, you mentioned you personally, you're quite open to higher risk things.
Yeah, so I think as well, it comes down, I think, to your time horizon as well. So, and this is what I find out. So naturally, I'm a little bit more, I guess, open to taking a bit more risk.
I suppose by nature of being self-employed.
Yeah, nature of being self-employed, understand maybe a little bit more about it and how that can help growth, I guess. And this is all things I try to help educate clients with and on, but time is a key part of that. So pension, for example, if you're starting a pension out at 2025, you've potentially got 35, 40 years for that to be in.
Yeah.
You've got that time to be able to withstand any fluctuations. Whereas if you change that to maybe it's a stocks and shares ISA, where you've got a goal in 5 years, I want this to pay for something, you've only got 5 years. So in that sense, a little bit of common sense, I guess, you wouldn't take as much risk with the 5-year ISA as you would the 40-year pension, just because time is your best friend, I guess.
Yeah,
in investments. So yeah, it all depends on situations, I guess, for each client and what they feel comfortable with. But part of my job is educating them on how beneficial growth in equities can be, I guess.
Just out of interest, I mean, it's quite interesting talking to you, actually, because I sort of half expected, obviously knowing what you do, for you to be really financially motivated and like sort of completely all about the money.
Yeah.
It's not the case, which I'm actually really pleased about, because that is what the podcast's about. It's about your passions and I think you summed it up when you said when you moved into management, it took away that part of the job that you were really passionate about.
Yeah.
And I say that because what I'm not interested in is anyone's turnover. I'm not interested in anyone's wages or how much money you've got in the bank. However, because of what you do, I'm curious as to know that how much of a personal interest you kind of take into stocks, shares, investments, or whatever it is, just because I know certainly website designers tend to have an atrocious website themselves.
Okay.
Builders, quite obvious, you get, I mean, if you speak to builders' wives, they're always complaining about jobs that aren't getting done.
Yeah, yeah.
That's really sexist, I shouldn't say that, but you know what I mean, don't
Yeah.
you? How passionate are you in terms of your own financial situation? How interested are you? And I suppose, are you taking your own advice?
Yeah, so I maybe shouldn't admit this, but 'cause I tell clients not to do this, but I'll sort of check my investments, other people's investments every day.
Yeah.
At investors to see how what's happened to them. I advise them not to do that because it's not the right thing for them to
Yeah.
do. It can bring
I
in
think
some
stuff like it's difficult not to, though, isn't it? If
emotional
you've got that.
decisions. Yeah, so I don't think that's the right thing, but I do that, I suppose, in my job. I suppose I've got to do it really. I
Yeah.
need to be knowing what's going on, so I can help maybe relay information to the client, I guess. But yeah, I quite often read. So I'll check the Apple Stocks app on a morning, see what's happening in the world.
Yeah.
Read the Financial Times consistently. Just different areas of financial news I'll sort of take an interest in just to see what's going on in Asia, America. So the interest is definitely there.
Yeah.
The passion ultimately is the person, the client, helping them, but I still have an interest in that.
There has
side.
to be that.
There has to be, yeah.
Yeah.
I don't think you can do this job without having
No.
that interest in.
Just what you mentioned about research, and like you mentioned about the FT, I remember ages and ages when I was looking at shares. I mean, I started looking at the alternative investment market, and this was kind of, the internet was around, but you still got a bit of post through the door.
Yeah.
And I remember I signed up to this penny shares newsletter, and every week they'd send out, and it was the same with the newspapers as well. Like I think Piers Morgan actually got into trouble for it from memory. Basically, they'd give a tip: this company's going to do really well. Now, obviously, by dint of that, everyone that was reading that, everyone that got my penny shares tip list went out and bought these shares, which caused the price to rise.
Yeah.
And as is ultimately, like I say, that's when I say I've lost money.
Yeah.
Playing
Yeah.
fast and loose. What would you say are good? Because I mean, there's a big issue at the minute with reliable sources. You mentioned the Financial Times. That's stayed fairly consistent from what I was advised to read
Yeah.
way back in the day.
Yeah.
Whereabouts would you suggest people look if they want just to educate themselves on what's going on more broadly?
Yeah, I think Financial Times is probably a good place to start. I think access to social media now, we can get access to any information so quickly.
Yeah.
But that information is not always correct. I think media can twist a story potentially to suit their maybe agenda.
Yeah.
So obviously always bear that in mind, but I think the Financial Times is certainly a good place to start. I do see people on Instagram have their own channels who aren't qualified but give advice, I guess. And I would just say to stay clear of that avenue, I guess. Or certainly do a bit of background check on the person. So I use some, obviously, social media to post bits of information, but at the same time you can check that I'm qualified with some people's profiles. They're putting videos out and explaining what people can do, but
how can you spot those people? I mean, just because, like I say, that's something that I find interesting myself on your social media. How would I know?
So you can check obviously on the FCA register to see who's registered potentially as a business
Right.
and stuff, and who's registered as an advisor. That I think is probably the easiest thing to do.
So if I went online, FCA register, put someone's name in, or put your name in.
So you can either put my name or my business name in,
Yeah.
and it'll come up saying you
Yes, you're
registered to
qualified.
being qualified in this
Right.
area. That's probably the quickest and easiest way.
Right.
It's probably easy for me to spot because in the videos I'll maybe say something wrong, but I know that. But I suppose for somebody
You've done your studying,
yeah.
you've got your exams. Yeah.
But for somebody who doesn't, I would just say, be mindful of who they take information from on those sort of platforms, and just do a little bit of a check beforehand to make sure they're qualified.
That's why I asked you that question, because it's just, it comes up time and time again. People talking about, mainstream sources, and they're not, this isn't reliable, that's not reliable.
Yeah.
And there's so much confusion at the minute.
Yeah.
And but so for someone like yourself to be able to say, right, check these sites. I mean, or even plumbers, Corgi register, you can just go, are these people qualified?
Yeah.
Yes, that's reassuring.
Yeah.
Because ultimately, you know, it's all on consumer, isn't it, to really sort of take that care.
Yeah. Absolutely.
I mean, you mentioned social media. Have you? Is that something you do much of yourself?
I do at the minute. I do all of it myself, but I'd probably not consistent enough. So you might know, with obviously having your own business, there's
Yeah.
various things to juggle. At some point along the line, I think we will have to employ somebody who specialises in that area to take care of it for me in the business. But at the minute, I do it all myself.
Have you got a channel on?
So I use Facebook in particular, Instagram and LinkedIn. But yeah, so again, a little bit of inconsistency with what I post on. That needs to improve from my side. But yeah, so they're the channels I use. Facebook mainly, just because that's got the most amount of sort of followers and friends on and what have you.
Do you do paid ads, or is it just your?
No, just my own at the minute. It probably is something I'll look at doing at some point again. But it's been fairly new, just trying to keep, I suppose, cost at a minimum, really.
Absolutely.
Until we get the business sort of built up, and then we can sort of add these little.
So what are you finding most of your business is coming from then?
At the minute, a lot of it's just been my own network. Have had queries that have come from posts on social media. Sort of starting out to get referrals from people who know us and clients already. And it's just trying to get that momentum really to sort of snowball effect, I guess. But at some point we'll have to sort of sit down and think, how can we start to attract more people from outside my network, I guess. And haven't found the magic formula for that yet, but that's something that's on my agenda, thinking from January.
I would say, because I mean, clearly with your profession, how you help other people, you've got a mind that works for planning. Do you find that is useful in terms of planning your business, or is it a case of like you're still like a lot of small business owners just try to juggle everything?
Yeah, so even though I don't know why this is, but I enjoy the planning, you know, setting somebody's life goals out, but then as being as organised personally myself is probably not my strongest aspect, which is then funny.
I think that's very human.
If
you help, I suppose it's that thing. If your main goal is genuinely to help people, it's you're kind of prioritising that rather than doing your own, aren't you?
Yeah, and quite often I'll find, you know, I'll do everything for the client, fit them in wherever I can, and that's a detriment for maybe something I have planned and organised to do with the business. So, but my partner Kirsty, she's the organizer, so she keeps us in check, which we have that good blend, I guess.
Right. Is she part of the business, or is she?
Not yet. So the CW is Cunningham Wilson, my surname, her surname. When we get married, we'll probably have to change that and rebrand. But yeah, so at the moment, she worked at Santander as well. We both took redundancy, and so the plan is probably 12, 18 months time she'll come on board as well, and advise and do some admin, power plan, same as me.
Right.
So we then have two of us in there. And yeah, I think she'll bring a lot of good qualities in the organisational side to sort of help me out and do that. But yeah, at the minute it's pretty much just juggling and every aspect. As you say, there's quite a few.
There's a lot of us in that situation.
Yeah.
Just what you mentioned in the redundancy there, this which maybe this is me being out of practice, but I normally ask this a lot earlier on in the interview. Was that the reason that you started for you? What was it that motivated you to start on your own?
So going back to probably younger days, really. So my father, he passed away now, but he had his own business as a butcher.
Right.
And so whether that stems from that, but I always wanted my own business. I just never knew doing what.
Yeah.
And then went into banking and found something I enjoyed, and I guess from that, it's probably been in the back of my mind that potentially I could do that. And then speaking to some close friends who were also advisors, they said, look, you should give it a go and try and sort of build your own business. And then it's just sort of followed from that, really. The redundancy probably come at a perfect time. So that come at the middle of last year, I think. give us the platform to then be able to go and start off our own business, give us a little bit of funds to just support you in that.
Do you think you would? So you think you'd, if the redundancy hadn't happened, you think you would have gone for it anyway?
Yeah, without a doubt.
Yeah.
It still would have happened. It just, I see, come at a perfect time.
Yeah.
Redundancy. I'd passed my exam, found out that in, I think, the March, and I think in the February we'd been told there was a chance that we wouldn't be being redundant, so the timing just aligned.
Yeah.
And just felt it was something that we had to do. But yeah, it would have happened regardless. And I'd like to have thought it would have been not far behind.
Yeah.
When we did anyway.
Would you describe your field as competitive? Because I've always been aware of a number of financial advisors around and about. I suppose some tend to specialise more in mortgages, some tend to specialise more in pensions and investments and that kind of thing. And I suppose there is a lot of, everyone needs it really, don't they? Even if you've got a works pension, you should still really...
Yeah, and so in my opinion, everybody should speak to a financial advisor. I suppose naturally I'm going to say that, but I don't think a lot of people understand the value that can come from speaking to somebody, and the advice that they can receive and get, and certainly ongoing. As for being competitive, I think at the moment in this country, there's I think the average age of an advisor is something like 57, 58.
Right.
The advice gap is getting bigger and bigger, so people aren't seeing advisors as probably as much as they should. So in the industry, I think over the next few years, we're hopefully going to try and see that average age come down. But competitive, I think it maybe is from a sort of company to company. So you've got your other wealth management companies and advice between them. I guess there's always maybe that little bit of they're better than us or whatever, But certainly, so I'm associated with St James's Place. I don't see any competitiveness sort of between other advisors there. I think everybody's very willing to help each other. But naturally, you are going to have people who will want to take business from you, I guess.
Yeah.
And always maybe promise clients maybe the world that they can't deliver. But I think certainly from my experience so far, I haven't had that, I guess. It's always been very helpful and people willing to help.
Yeah.
Because I'm quite new, I guess, to the running your own business side.
Yeah. Going back to what we were saying about education, now I think there is a huge issue. I've chatted about. I'm reasonably actually well organised with my finances, reasonably so. But I know so many people who aren't. I'm sure I heard. I don't know if this is legitimate, but I'm sure I heard on the radio about, I think about 16 million adults in the UK would struggle to find would struggle to pay an additional bill of £100. There's advice. I don't know if it's something that you'd recommend yourself, but is it 3 or 6 months wages in the bank for any given time?
Yeah.
And then we're getting a lot of certainly younger people at the minute saying and particularly I think as well, if you live down south, there's just not the spare money.
Yeah.
That must be possibly one of the biggest objections that you would get as to why someone wouldn't be in touch with you. Would that be reasonable?
Yeah, potentially.
And what would you say to that?
So I think, I don't know if the exact figure's right, but I know there is quite a few people who, I think I read something that they don't have £300 to buy a new washer or something like that.
Yeah.
But that is it's
quite shocking figures though, isn't it, when you look at...
Yeah. I think at the minute, I don't know what it is, but I guess I feel like we're a bit of a nation of spenders as well at the moment. So I feel like what we do earn, we then spend. Obviously, cost of living has probably added to that, inflation.
Inflation's been
but my job isn't necessarily just about investing money, I guess. It's helping with potential debt management, I guess, but protecting what's important as well.
Right, okay.
So it isn't just about what wealth you've got for me, which I think is a perception that people have of financial advisors and financial planners, that you have to have a certain level of wealth.
I'm quite interested in what you said about debt. Can you tell me a little bit more about how you might assist with that?
Yeah, so I think it's about just looking at what people are obviously spending naturally,
Yeah.
and just helping them to see, you know, what's important, what they want to achieve in the next 3,
Yeah.
5, 10 years, and just saying, look, based on what you've got at the moment, that
Yeah.
isn't achievable. You know, we need to look at areas where we can potentially make maybe what money you do have work better for you,
Yeah.
if they have got any, or then look at how we can help sort of strip maybe some of that expenditure away.
Yeah.
Um,
Pay off the credit card bills
yeah,
and
so
then
credit,
cut them up.
yeah, the credit cards. Don't get us wrong, I think they have the purpose, and I think
Yeah.
they, when used right, are a good tool to have. So I wouldn't say, you know, do not get a credit card, because I think certainly for online purchases, holidays,
Yeah,
they
that's
have
it.
the
It's like
protection
you've
there.
got that side of things there, but they
But
do
if
need
they're used
managing.
wrongly, if they're used wrongly, then that can add to
Yeah.
your bills and your expenditure every month. So it's just looking at that, looking a little bit closer to people's
Yeah.
finances, I guess, to be able to see where and how I can help and advise them on what to do, really.
So in terms of when people come, because you've said you don't need to be a millionaire to come and talk to someone like you. At what point would you suggest that someone should be coming and picking up the phone and ringing you?
Anytime, really.
Yeah. I mean, say for example, if someone does have that situation, they're at the end of every month they're going into their overdraft.
Yeah.
They don't see they've got anything to invest. In their head, there's probably no point calling you.
Yeah.
What would you say to them?
I just say, so there's certainly for the there's no detriment, I suppose, to them in reaching out. So
Yeah.
there's no cost to them initially to sit down with me and have a review. So I think that's the biggest. I think a lot of people, one of the first questions I get asked by majority of people is, how much is it going to cost us? So that's one thing I'd say is, look, having a review of your situation, your finances, your circumstances costs nothing initially. Yes, if we put something in place, there will at some point potentially be a cost, but that only comes about once they've signed on the dotted line to say,
Right.
I'm happy with whatever you recommend, I'm happy to do what you've suggested. But yeah, so the initial...
Will that cost not essentially be paid by the whichever fund?
Yeah, so it doesn't...
Thing.
It's not...
It's not me.
£100,
yeah,
for example.
Because I do know there are some people like you that operate like that. Is that right?
Yeah, so some individual financial advisors, is what the class as, they'll charge for, I suppose, the time.
Right.
So they will charge for the meeting, and they'll charge maybe per case, whereas it's slightly different with me because I'm associated with St James's Place, that we don't charge for the time in the first meeting, as I say.
Yeah.
The cost only comes then when we put something in place,
Yeah.
and it comes from the fund.
Essentially, it's kind of a commission that's...
Yeah, I guess. I guess it's just, I prefer that. Some people, I've had clients say, look, I'd rather pay you for the time if I haven't gone ahead with it. And I said, I prefer this way. You know, the client then ultimately knows they're happy with.
Is that so? It's from your perspective then, that it's purely a question of your preference, whether you want to like sort of be one of these kind of guys like yourself that just charges for the time and advice, as opposed to...
You know, I would have to sort of leave. This is St James's Place. This is how they do it.
Yeah.
I guess so. I'm a franchise from them, but I could go out on my own and charge per meeting for my time. But I don't want to do that. I don't think that's necessarily the right thing to do.
No, I mean that's fine. And as I say, I mean ultimately your choice.
Yeah.
You've got to do what you think's right.
What I do is the right way to do it.
Yeah.
The client will ultimately know what we're looking to do, what the cost is before, as I say, they sign on the dotted line and anything.
Yeah.
Any cost occurs.
Again, to go back to the public of this country, we're a nation of spenders. How do you think do you think that's a good thing? It obviously boosts the economy, or do you think if you say you're advising, we've got a new government in, they give you, Anthony, we've got an issue with people spending, we've got an issue with what kind of advice, what sort of things would you like to see, do you think, that would help the public at large?
I think what's come is obviously the ease in spending. So I think online now is such a massive part. You know, you can see high streets around the the place that just dwindling now onto the
Yeah.
shops and stuff, because people, it's so easily, accessible, I guess. I don't know, I'd maybe think, how many emails do we get a day from companies saying there's a discount on this, or
Yeah.
you can buy this, and then you'll click the link, it'll take you to the website, and then next minute you've spent £80 on a t-shirt that you don't need.
That's it. It's never a bargain unless you're going to buy it anyway.
Yeah. So I don't know, something maybe's on. I don't know what the answer is, if I'm being honest. I don't know how we sort of curb that. It's, I suppose, this maybe comes in education, about there'll be a lot of people out there who aren't paying to a pension, I guess. So they're not planning for longer term. Some people are probably relying on the state pension, and it's how we change that attitude from I spend, so whatever my excess income is, I spend that and enjoy it every month, to going, well, actually, I want to enjoy 50% of it, say, but save 50% of it, and plan for future events, for marriages, children, children going to university.
Tell me about it.
Pension, and you sort of plan the life events that they foresee in the future, and maybe say to them, well, how are you going to afford that?
Yeah.
And then they'll say, I don't know. And they say, okay, do you want actually, is that realistically something you want to achieve? And they'll be like, obviously, yes, I want my daughter's son to go to university. Well, to do that, you need to put this in place now, spend a little bit less. So maybe as we go down that route, as I say, that's something I would potentially do with a client. But how we get that out to the wider audience,
always a difficult one, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's
it is,
like
other
people
than you kind of force somebody to.
No, I mean, I suppose in many ways the people that would most need your help are perhaps the least likely to seek it out, in a way.
Yeah, I would.
It's. I mean, I think. I mean, it's not on your literature, but I've seen other people that say wealth management, and I think straight away that perception is. I mean, how many of us actually consider ourselves wealthy, and it's a big thing.
Yeah, and that's I think I said on the podcast with Melanie, but that's a reason why I didn't want wealth in our sort of company name. I wanted it to be financial.
Yeah.
Because like I say, I think there's the perception about the word wealth that.
I think also just from talking to you, that says a lot more about your priorities.
Yeah.
For what you're doing. I mean, someone that's a wealth manager, to me, is looking to.
Yeah.
It just sounds as though they're looking to speak to very rich people.
Yeah.
And can tell us where we can put our money or whatever.
Yeah.
I don't know why I'm saying we. I'm certainly I don't consider myself wealthy, but no, that's fine. So I mean, in terms of the future, then, what does the future look like for you?
So ideally, I suppose our next step is obviously growing the business, but growing it sufficiently so we can bring Kirsty on board, and expanding that way, I guess, having two of us being able to do the job at the same time. Further down the line, we'd hope to be able to employ at least one, if not 2, 3 members of staff. Maybe just to more take care of the paperwork side, the admin side.
Bits that you don't like doing as much.
Yeah, well, I personally, it's an area that I don't love it. I guess other people, I'm not sure who do, but my partner, I guess Kirsty, I think she is good at that. So she might actually enjoy that. But it's more to free up your time to be able to go and see more people and help more people. And that's the benefit that brings, I guess. So that's I suppose the longer term aim is to get a couple of staff under us, and that will hopefully allow us to help more and more people. So grow nice and steadily. Yeah, I mean, organically for us is an aim, going through referrals, word of mouth. I think with a lot of things nowadays, we take someone's word over potentially maybe facts, I guess. So we'll if someone tells us a certain restaurant's nice and lovely, go there. We will trust friends or family members say so, I guess. Or just delivering that good service for everybody, that client, naturally. So build a reputation, growing organically, and that's the way forward. And you, so as far as starting your business, you're happy you did it, and and things are going right. No regrets whatsoever. That's fantastic. Don't get us wrong, it has been tough, and there's been tough moments. But you've just got to keep keep pushing forward and moving forward, and it will bear fruition.
That's all you can do, and I do wish you every success for it, Anthony. It's been really pleasure to chat to you.
Likewise.
Thank you for coming on.